Fairy Clodagh and I'm back for another story time. And actually, our story today is all about my fairy friends, Evie Bee, Jojo, Ali May and Layla Bell. Are you ready? Me too. Here we go. First day at fairy school. One bright sunny day, Fairy Evie Bee was making her way to the heart of Fairy Valley and to her new home. She arrived at Dust Downs and knocked on the door of the little fairy house, feeling so excited to meet her new housemates. The door swung open and 3 little smiling faces greeted her. Evie Bee drew a large breath into her fairy lungs and squealed with excitement. She knew instantly that she would be lifelong friends with these 3 fairies. "Oh gosh, you guys!" she gushed and ran to grab them all in a fairy hug. The 4 fairies hugged warmly. "My name is Evie Bee." One of the female fairies spoke excitedly. "I'm Layla Bell, this is Ali May, and this is Jojo." All the fairies smiled and waved one by one as they were introduced. "Oh my goodness, guys, we're actually in Fairy Valley!" Evie Bee shrieked with excitement. "And tomorrow we start fairy school," Ali May said. "Well, in that case, we'd better get cracking on finding what we need for our first day," Jojo said, as they helped Evie Bee in with her case. The 4 fairies spent a while getting to know each other, which Evie Bee really enjoyed. She just loved to chat. Not long after that, the fairy friends left their house and went in search of everything they would need when they started fairy school. The items on the list were as follows: an empty journal, an apron, a mirror, 3 red berries, some bat air. Bat air is the air trapped in pockets under a bat's wings. It collects while they sleep upside down, and if you catch it just as they wake and stretch at night, it can apparently be very useful. How useful exactly is anyone's guess. A blueberry, and a ladybird burp. This would prove to be the easiest item of all to catch, as ladybirds are quite windy and burp a lot. They have no problem burping into a little jar for fairies when asked. The fairies had such fun collecting all these things together, and while they collected their ladybird burps, Ali May and Evie Bee had a chance to have a little chat. "How do you feel about the introduction thing tomorrow?" Ali May asked Evie Bee. She was talking about the first day fairy circle. On the first day of fairy school, classes are arranged in friend circles, and each fairy has to stand up and introduce themselves. Evie Bee shrugged, as if to say, "No big deal." "Well, Evie Bee, it just fills me with dread," Ali May said. "I'm not able to stand up and tell people about myself. I find that so hard to do with everyone looking straight at me, and with my look, I just know I'll be picked first, and all those fairy faces staring at me. Oh gosh, I'll just wilt." Ali May got so worked up, her little face turned bright red and 2 tiny tears slipped down her cheek. "Come now," Evie Bee said, trying to comfort her friend. "It won't be all that bad." Ali May was still upset and trembled with fear as she spoke. "It's easy for you, Evie Bee. You love to chat to everyone. I prefer to chat one-on-one." Evie Bee knew Ali May was right. Some things made her feel a little frightened, but talking was definitely not one of them. Evie Bee felt bad for her friend Ali May. She was such a sweet and gentle fairy, and Evie Bee was already very fond of her. She remembered back to when they had all met. Ali May had waved cheerily when she was introduced, and chatted happily to Evie Bee when they were alone. "I promise it'll be okay, Ali May," Evie Bee said as she hugged her friend. Ali May smiled a little. "You think so?" "I know so. Everything is going to be just fine." Evie Bee smiled brightly. Evie Bee knew then that she would have to do whatever it would take to help her friend, even if it meant looking a little silly in the process. The next day at school, all the fairies were divided into fairy circles, and Evie Bee made sure she was with Ali May at all times. When the fairies were seated, a fairy from a higher year began the chatting. "So, let's get to know each other a little. she said, spinning around in the air slowly, looking at all the faces. Evie Bee glanced at Ally May beside her and noticed she looked green with worry. And then, just as Ally May had feared, the older fairy stopped and looked right at her. "Hey, you look like a fairy who wants to get this over quick. Let's start with you." Ally May froze. And then, in a split second, Evie Bee jumped to her feet. "Hi everyone," she said loudly, and all the little fairy heads turned to look at her. Evie Bee giggled. So, my name is Evie Bee, and I live in Dust Downs with my BFFs, Layla Bell, Jojo, and Ally May. This is Ally May here beside me. She is the sweetest fairy in the world. Yesterday, she helped a bat get a thorn from its wing, so I have a funny feeling my friend here is going to be a healer when she's a bit older. Anyway, she enjoys getting to know other fairies one-on-one, and she's an excellent listener, I should know. I talk a lot, and she always listens. Evie Bee stopped for breath, and there was silence for a moment before all the fairies in the circle began laughing and clapping. Evie Bee laughed too. Ally May looked so relieved. She clapped and laughed and looked lovingly at her friend. Evie Bee enjoyed the praise, and even bowed a few times. "Evie Bee, you are a character," the older fairy smiled. "Ally May, have you got anything to add?" "Nope, my BFF covered it all, I think," she said in a small but more confident voice. "Okay then, let's move on," the fairy said, and then the next fairy stood to say their piece. Ally May leaned in close to Evie Bee. "Thank you so much for that. You have been so kind, and I will never forget it," she said as she squeezed her friend's hand. "Any time," Evie Bee beamed, delighted to have helped a friend in need. And in that moment, she understood that helping someone else with something that you can do easily is no effort at all. The end. Thanks for listening. I'd love to hear what your favourite part was. Maybe you could leave me a comment below. From all of us, we'll see you next time. Bye!